It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, Angela, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker, Eric Frandsen here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Feel free to chime in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. Had a chance to talk to Utah State football head coach Bronco Mendenhall in the first hour. We'll have that published as soon as we can. We'll have the full first hour, and we'll have just the interview with Bronco Mendenhall. Went about 15, 20 minutes. I think it was about 20 minutes talking about a bunch of different stuff, pretty much entirely related to like off-season topics and the current goings-on in college football and with Utah State. Yeah. So good little chat we had there. And then touched a little bit on Mountain West men's basketball. We'll get a little bit more into that. We'll actually give our picks for who we think should win different Mountain West awards like Player of the Year and then first and second team and all that. But we also have what do we call it? A contest that we're having. We are going to call it a contest. It's March Madness, and that means it's time for brackets. And we'll certainly we'll be hosting one of those. Yeah, so we have to be careful in the terminology we use. So we're going to call it the 1069 The Fan and Locker 42 Bracket Challenge. So get your bracket filled out. We shared some things on social media earlier today, but we're teaming up with Locker 42 to give out gift cards, swag, and the top 10 entries are going to win something as much as $300 gift card for first place, $200 for second, $100 for the third place bracket. There's also going to be Aggie coolers, blankets, hats, sweatshirts, a lot of different things we're giving away. Thanks to the folks over at Locker 42. And so we're organizing it, using the Yahoo Fantasy platform to score it, organize it. So the bracket has been created. You can go to 1069thefan.com or follow me or follow Jason or even follow 1069 The Fan on social media, Twitter or Facebook. And the link is there. It's totally free. Costs nothing to enter or participate. This is for the NCAA tournament, right? Yes. Okay. So, log in. You can start creating your account now so that when the bracket gets filled out on Sunday afternoon, you're ready to go. And so get it all filled out. Join the group and be part of the our bracket challenge. We're going to away hundreds of dollars of prizes thanks to Locker 42. Can I win any of those prizes? You can. Oh, really? No, you cannot. You can win a place, but you cannot win the prizes. So you'll have bragging rights. Yeah, I don't qualify because I'm part of the company. But you do not qualify for the gear thing. But I'll see if I can get my brother to win it, even though he's probably technically not eligible, but I'll be sneaky about it. Well, hey, if a guy wants in, we're going to have folks here in the building register, and now we're not going to be able to win prizes, but man, I'm going to be holding the most valuable thing of it all over everybody's head if I win, and that's the bragging rights. Well, see, I'm terrible at picking NCAA tournament brackets. So if you enter and you see mine and I'm down in like last place, it's just because I'm bad at it. So I'm going to see if I can go all in, though. I'm going to use like all the analytics and different things and see if I can get it right. But ultimately just get it wrong anyway because you can't predict it. That's right. Now, I know some people fill out multiple brackets on different places or different platforms or among neighbors and friends. Make this your best bracket
because there's a lot of stuff on the line. Great opportunity to win a lot of sweet stuff.
I might do my best bracket for my family because I can at least win something there. I'll win like a $10 movie gift card or something.
But you would have the pride and total like public recognition of having the best in this one, Jason.
I'll just fill out a bracket and then show it later, and it'll be a perfect bracket. This is the one I definitely filled out.
Yeah, look at this.
So let's talk about not necessarily a bracket, but the Mountain West Championships, the Mountain West Tournament. But before the Mountain West Tournament gets going, they're going to be revealing the all-conference, all-league, whatever you want to call it. They'll have their player, all the of-the-year awards.
Yeah.
Then they'll have their first, second, and third team for Mountain West players. Maybe even an all-defensive team. I can't remember if they do an all-defensive team or not. But those votes have already been cast. They've already totally decided. They'll be announcing them tomorrow around 11 a.m., so keep an eye out for that. But before those go out, Eric and I are going to be giving our thoughts. There's a limited number of votes going to coaches and a couple of media members, but we decided we'd give our thoughts.
We do our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll say this is what we believe should happen. I believe this is probably what will happen, and I kind of agree. There's a couple of these where I'm not 100% sure. It could go either way. But this is who I would pick. And 2444 texting and saying that we would love to hear your predictions for the Mountain West men's basketball postseason awards and all conference teams. Hope to see both Ian and Mason honored. So we'll go through that now. So let's start with the of the year awards.
Okay. Yeah, the individual awards.
Yeah, the individual awards. Player of the year, defensive player of the year, coach of the year, so on and so forth. Starting with player of the year. And this one, I don't know, I tend to try and stay out of MVP debates because they can get toxic, and I feel like this one's getting a little toxic because there's two guys that are in this discussion, although one fan base thinks there should only be one player and thinks that should be a runaway candidate. Now, I tend to agree that player should be the player of the year, but I don't think it's like 100%. That's Donovan Dent. I think he's going to win the award. Like, if you ask me to predict it, I say Donovan Dent wins it. I think Nick Clifford should be in consideration, but I don't think he'll win it, just based on voting conventions and the fact that Donovan Dent is a deserving player.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Donovan Dent, he has my vote. I think he will win it. I understand the argument for Nick Clifford, but Dent did some things that are on a historic level for New Mexico and for the Mountain West. So I think he was just a very, very dynamic player, and I think he's going to get the honor.
Yeah, and then let's go to defensive player of the year. And this is the one where it's like there were 5 different players when I was looking at this. Like, so many different players I think could be deserving. From Magoon Gwath, who led the league in blocks. Mason Falslev led the league in steals. Analytics favor a couple of different guys like Nick Clifford. And also, ultimately, my pick, Miles Bird. A guy who's a 6'7" forward, in the conversation for one of the best perimeter defenders, but also a guy who averaged like a block and a half this season as a wing. And so in a field full of very worthy possibilities, I just chose one and I said I'm going with Miles here.
And I went with his teammate, Magoon Gwath. Just a great rim protector, just difficult to score on. He's only a freshman, but man, he made an impact quickly as a freshman for a very good defensive team, San Diego State.
Yeah, just absolutely changes things whenever he's on the court. Let's go to Coach of the Year. And at one point, this award had Jared Calhoun's name laser etched into it. But I think that's ultimately changed and gone to the head coach for Colorado State, Nico Medved. I know a lot of people want Patino, but his team was picked to finish second, had a returning guy who I felt was going to be like, I thought, I know Tyson Degenhart got the preseason player of the year, but I felt Donovan Dent was very likely to be in that conversation from the beginning of the season. And they were also returning one of the best centers in the league. New Mexico was supposed to be good, and they were good. Colorado State was supposed to be mediocre, and they are good. So I ultimately went with the guy who's done a more impressive coaching job this season, and that's Nico Medved.
See, and I think Richard Pitino has done the more impressive coaching job. Last year in the offseason, they lost House, they lost Mashburn, they lost Toppin, and they replaced him with guys that we thought were going to be okay, but I don't think we realized they're going to be that good. And so they exceeded my expectations. And they won their first outright conference championship in forever. And so I got to give it to Richard Pitino for the coaching job that he did with this team that we didn't really expect much of.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, if you ask me to predict who I think is going to win Coach of the Year, I think Pitino will probably win Coach of the Year. But I would go with Niko Medved, my personal opinion. But obviously, there are great arguments. Like I think you've put together one of the best arguments I've heard. Some people just say Pitino because they won the Mountain West, but I think you laid it out pretty well, his case to win. Moving on to sixth man of the year, I've got it's the first Aggie to show up on my ballot. That's Drake Allen. Dexter Acano is not eligible to win the award. He started too many games at this point. Otherwise, he would have been most anyone's pick. There are a few other guys in the Mountain West who could have won it. I know Latrell Davis is a pretty he's the leading scorer off the bench. But I decided to go with the guy who's had a big impact on winning, and that's Drake Allen.
And I went with Latrell Davis, actually, from San Jose.
I'm preempting you on like every single one of your picks.
Yes. He played starter minutes. He scored like a starter, but he was the sixth man for San Jose. Yes, they didn't have a great year, but when he was on the court, he was an impact player.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against the guy who averages like almost 16 points a game off the bench.
Right. Yeah, nearly 32 minutes a game.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So let's go to newcomer of the year, and I went with Wyoming's Obi Agbim. Dude is one of the best scorers in the league, and as far as being a newcomer, it's also hard to weed through exactly who is a newcomer.
Yeah.
Because I think Alvaro Cardenas, still counts as a newcomer, as would like Josh Aduje, and those guys both had good years. But Obi Agbim, I think, should be a pretty clear newcomer of the year winner.
For me, I went with Nick Boyd coming over from Florida Atlantic to San Diego State. Really big impact for the Aztecs this year.
I kind of forgot about Nick Boyd. That's actually a good pick. Man, you made me think about that
You're
one.
second guessing.
You made me think about that one because Nick Boyd was another guy I considered for like defensive player of the year because he had a fantastic year on both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. Going with freshman of the year, I wonder if we'll agree on this one as well. Magoon Guath. I don't know if there's too many other great choices. Most of them are on San Diego State anyway because they've got Taj DeGorville.
They got a lot of freshmen.
Who's a freshman, and I think Pharaoh Compton, another freshman. They have a bunch of freshman contributors. They put up some of the biggest numbers. There weren't too many other freshmen. There were a couple, but I just don't feel like any of them, especially with Guath being a defensive player of the year candidate, maybe even winner. It's hard to vote for anyone else.
I went with Elijah Price.
I see you keep doing it to me.
Fresno State, three-time winner of Freshman of the Week honors in the Mountain West. Again, kind of like the San Jose situation. Bad team, but here's a guy that still went out and balled out, did what he could as a freshman.
He's an exciting guy, 6'9" wings, got a very smooth game.
Yeah, got a bright future.
Yeah, it can be pretty tricky to guard. Let's move on to our first, second, and third team. We'll probably get a little quicker as we move on. So I'll give my whole first team.
Yeah.
And that's Donovan Dent, Nick Clifford, Ian Martinez, Nelly Jr. Joseph, and Tyson Degenhart.
Times two.
All right.
Same thing for me. I know there's been some that I've seen out there. I think the top four, Clifford, Dent, Degenhart, and Joseph, seem to be pretty consistent. There's been some. Well, let me back that up. Clifford, Dent, and Degenhart seem to be pretty consistent from other places that I've seen. Beating Ian Martinez and Nelly Jr. Joseph on there, there's some variations in there, but I'm with you. I think those are the top five players in the league.
And I feel like it'd be I've seen some people leave Ian Martinez off, and so it makes me wonder. And also, will there be some split between, one of Ian Martinez and Mason Falslev need to be on first team? I feel like it would be just not right if one of them didn't make it.
Agreed. Yeah.
But it is possible, depending on how the votes go, that one of them may not end up on there. I know I saw one person have Miles Bird over Ian Martinez. To be honest, if you put in Miles Bird, you move Tyson Degenhart off, put Ian Martinez there. Because I don't know. I feel like your third place team needs to have their star player represented, and not just as a principle of third best team has to have somebody on there. Ian Martinez is just definitively one of the five best players in the Mountain West, and I don't feel like there's that much of an argument there.
Yeah, didn't every Mountain West game he played, it was in double figures scoring?
And Donovan Denton was the only other person who did that.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire season. So, okay, let's go to our second team. I've got Mason Falslev, Alvaro Cardenas, Miles Bird, Nick Boyd, and Obi Agbim.
Okay, so we have some variants here.
I figured there'd be some variants starting.
So on
here.
my second team, Mason Falslev, Nick Boyd, Dayton Thomas, Obi Agbim, and Alvaro Cardenas.
So you had Dayton Thomas over
Miles Byrd.
Miles Byrd. All right. Yeah, that's fair. I think I just moved Aiden Thomas down a little further because I wasn't as impressed. But he's certainly deserving of being higher up there.
Yeah.
Let's go on to third team. I've got Kobe Sanders, Nick Davidson. This is where I have Dayton Thomas. Then I have Josh Aduje and Ethan Taylor.
Again, we're close, but a little bit of variance. So Kobe Sanders, Miles Byrd, Jalen Lake, Josh Aduje, and Nick Davidson.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're pretty close.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
just a few variances there.
Yeah, just some slight variance. And I think fair enough, reasonable minds can disagree on these kind of things, especially once you get into second and third team.
Yeah. Then you start to get a little bit more into the weeds of their impact on their teams and how they affected the competition of the Mountain West.
Yeah, and then just your own impression of how good of a player they are.
Yeah.
So I think that could very much, and my bias for Josh Aduje may be shining through a little bit because I think he's a great player. So
yeah, well, I had him on my third team as well, but
Yeah.
I think he deserves to be there, not just because of what we've seen him do in an Aggie uniform, but I mean, he's been the star player for San Jose in a starting role. And yes, they've had a struggling season, but he's been pretty consistent and he's been a solid player for them.
Yeah. One thing I kept forgetting to mention this, but we have a shortened show today. I think we kind of warned everyone last week, but just a reminder, I kept meaning to say that the whole first hour. But we're going to be out here in a couple of minutes and we'll be handing it off to. Who are we handing it off to? Oh, it's the Jazz again. It's the Jazz. It's not until like Tuesday, Wednesday we get into some of the college basketball. But the Utah Jazz are taking on Boston. So Macy Nemiashketa taking on the Jazz. But we'll be out. So we try to get through as much of this as we can. We'll focus a lot on UNLV coming up later this week before we end up going down to Vegas. Some interesting developments where they may be down not just one star player, but maybe multiple key players, in addition to some of the season-long injuries they've already been dealing with guys like Rob Whaley. So could be a very talent-deprived UNLV team facing the Aggies, presuming they get past Air Force, who's lost their last 4 games by like 100 points. And that's not an exaggeration.
It's been a rough end of the season for the Falcons. But, yeah, so I know you met with Coach Calhoun earlier today, so we'll hear from Coach Calhoun tomorrow to kind of set the stage for the Mountain West Conference tournament. But the bracket is now set. And, by the way, I know we don't have a lot of time, but the bracket matrix, Utah State seems to be in the number 10 spot right now in a lot of brackets.
And by all accounts, the Aggies are pretty much a guarantee to get in. That's the vibe going around all the bracketology community, all the NCAA people. They're confident the Aggies are going to be in. But I just have some in the back of my head that's like, you just got to win that quarterfinal game.
Just win at least one more.
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
Because I just don't trust the selection committee. I feel the Aggies should be in, but until their name flashes up on the screen, not going to be confident about it just because you don't trust the selection committee. Unless they manage to get that win over UNLV, that seals the deal.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about a lot tomorrow and Wednesday as we preview the Mountain West tournament here on the Full Court Press. Thanks everyone so much for listening. We'll make sure to talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good evening.